Kim Tae-ho stood near the large window of the space station, watching ships dock and undock like busy insects. The station called Harmony's Edge was huge, bigger than any city he had ever seen. Ships from 12 different alien races were parked outside, their strange shapes glowing with lights he had never seen before. Tae-ho felt small and unimportant. He was just a cultural attaché, which meant he wrote reports about human art and music. Nobody really cared about his work. The important people were Admiral Park Jin-woo, who commanded Earth's space fleet, diplomat Lee Dong-min, who made deals with aliens, and scientist Choi Hyun-sik, who invented amazing new technologies. This was the biggest meeting in human history. Earth had just joined the Galactic Council after years of proving they were civilized enough. Representatives from 12 alien species had come to welcome humanity, or judge if they were worthy. Tae-ho felt like he did not belong here with these important people. The aliens were incredible to see. The Kavari looked like giant tigers that walked on two legs with sharp claws and fierce yellow eyes. They wore armor made from metal that changed colors. The Vorthak had 4 arms and heads shaped like diamonds. Their skin was blue and covered in patterns that moved like living tattoos. The Plutonian merchants wore robes that sparkled with real gems, and their faces were hidden behind golden masks. Each group tried to show they were the most important. The Kavari did practice fights in the main hall, their roars echoing through the station. The Vorthak set up floating screens showing complex math problems that hurt to look at. The Plutonians displayed treasures worth more than entire planets. Tae-ho watched it all from the side, taking notes for his cultural reports. He wrote about how each species showed respect differently, how their body language revealed their feelings, how their art reflected their values. His supervisor back on Earth said these reports were interesting but not essential. That phrase always made Tae-ho feel invisible. Admiral Jin-woo was talking to a group of Kavari warriors, showing them videos of human military victories. His chest was covered with medals that caught the light. The Kavari nodded with approval, making growling sounds that meant they were impressed. Diplomat Dong-min stood with the Vorthak, speaking in their clicking language about trade agreements and defense treaties. Tae-ho was amazed that Dong-min could even pronounce their words. The Vorthak's diamond-shaped heads tilted as they calculated the benefits of each proposal. Scientist Hyun-sik had attracted a crowd of different aliens around his holographic display. He was showing them human inventions, faster engines, stronger materials, weapons that could destroy asteroids. The aliens made sounds of interest and surprise. Then everything changed. A new ship approached the station and every conversation stopped. Every screen, every display, every noise fell silent. The ship was unlike anything Tae-ho had ever seen. It looked like it was made from liquid starlight, flowing and shifting but somehow solid. Beautiful patterns moved across its surface like waves of light. "That's impossible," whispered scientist Hyun-sik, his face pale. "The energy readings don't make sense." "What species builds ships like that?" asked Admiral Jin-woo, his hand moving toward his weapon. Even the aliens looked shocked. The fierce Kavari warriors stepped backward. The calculating Vorthak made high-pitched sounds of confusion. The wealthy Plutonians dropped some of their treasures. An elderly Vorthak with more arm decorations than the others spoke in broken human language. "Etherian ship. The first ones, we thought. Legend only." The ship docked without making any sound. The airlock opened and a figure stepped out that made everyone forget how to breathe. She was tall and graceful, moving like she was floating instead of walking. Her hair was silver but seemed to contain actual starlight, flowing and glowing softly. Her skin had an opalescent shimmer that changed from pearl to gold to silver as she moved. But her eyes were the most incredible thing about her. They looked like galaxies deep and endless with tiny lights that moved like distant stars. She wore a simple dress that seemed to be made from the same flowing light as her ship. No jewelry, no weapons, no symbols of rank. She did not need any of these things. Her presence alone made everyone understand that she was far beyond them. The aliens immediately began trying to get her attention. The Kavari warriors dropped to one knee and began a ritual combat dance, leaping and spinning with their weapons. Their leader, a massive warrior with scars across his face, roared a challenge song. The Vorthak quickly formed a circle and began displaying floating mathematical proofs in the air. Complex equations spun around them in colors that made Tae-ho dizzy. They were trying to show their intelligence. The Plutonian merchants opened cases full of gems that sparkled like captured stars. They held up rare metals, ancient artifacts, and currencies from 100 worlds. One merchant offered a crown made from crystallized time itself. Even the humans joined in. Admiral Jinwoo stepped forward and began listing human military achievements. He spoke about battles won, planets defended, and peace kept through strength. His voice was confident and strong. Diplomat Dong Min presented Earth's diplomatic successes. He talked about treaties signed, conflicts resolved, and the trust humanity had earned from other species. His words were smooth and convincing. Scientist Hyun Sik activated his holographic displays, showing humanity's greatest inventions. Faster-than-light engines, medical technologies that could regrow limbs, computers that could think like humans. The images filled the air around him. The alien goddess looked at each display with polite interest. She nodded at the Kavari warriors, studied the Vorthak equations, examined the Plutonian treasures. When the humans presented their achievements, she listened carefully and asked thoughtful questions. But something strange happened. As she moved through the crowd, her galaxy eyes kept looking past all the impressive displays. She seemed to be searching for something or someone. Taeho stayed in his corner, feeling more invisible than ever. He had nothing to offer compared to these amazing displays of power, wealth, and intelligence. His cultural reports about human art and music seemed silly now. What could he possibly say to a being who looked like she had been born from the stars themselves? The crowd of admirers grew thicker around her. Everyone wanted to speak with her, to impress her, to gain her favor. The noise level rose as each group tried to shout over the others. The Kavari roared louder, the Vorthak spoke faster, the Plutonians offered bigger treasures. Through all this chaos, the alien goddess suddenly stopped moving. Her galaxy eyes swept across the entire hall, looking over the heads of all the people trying to get her attention. The starlight in her hair seemed to pulse brighter. Her gaze moved past Admiral Jinwoo with his medals and confident smile. It moved past Diplomat Dongmin with his smooth words and important treaties. It moved past Scientist Hyun Sik with his amazing inventions and floating displays. Her eyes found Taeho standing alone in his corner, holding his simple notebook where he wrote about human songs and stories. For a moment that felt like forever. Their eyes met across the crowded hall. She smiled, without saying a word to any of the important people around her. Without acknowledging any of the impressive displays or valuable offers, she began walking directly toward Taeho. The crowd parted in front of her, too shocked to speak. Every eye in the hall followed her movement. Every mouth fell open in disbelief. The most powerful beings in the galaxy watched in stunned silence as the alien goddess walked past all of them to approach the one human who had nothing special to offer. Taeho felt his heart beating so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. His hand shook as he closed his notebook. He had no idea what to say or do. He only knew that his small, invisible life was about to change forever. The alien goddess stopped right in front of Taeho, close enough that he could see the tiny stars moving in her eyes. The entire hall had gone completely silent. Even the air recycling system seemed to have stopped making noise. "You are the one I have been looking for," she said, and her voice was like music made from distant starlight. But the most shocking thing was that she spoke in perfect Korean, with the accent of someone from Seoul. "My name is Lyrae." Taeho tried to speak, but only managed a small croaking sound. Behind Lyrae, he could see hundreds of faces staring at them in complete disbelief. Admiral Jinwoo's mouth was hanging open. Scientist Hyun Sik had dropped his holographic controller. Even the fierce Kavari warriors looked confused and angry. I am Kim Taeho," he finally managed to say. "But I think you have made a mistake. I am nobody important." Lyrae's smile became warmer and the starlight in her hair pulsed gently. "There is no mistake. Would you walk with me? I would like to speak with you privately." The request sent shockwaves through the crowd. A Kavari warrior with battle scars covering his arms stepped forward. "Wait, I am Thrakmor, greatest warrior of my clan. I have defeated enemies across 7 star systems. Why do you not speak with me first?" A Vorthak with 4 arms covered in golden rings moved beside him. "I am Prime Calculator Zenth. My mathematical proofs have solved problems that have puzzled the galaxy for centuries. Surely my achievements deserve your attention." A Plutonian merchant in robes that cost more than a spaceship held up a chest of glowing gems. "Great goddess, I offer you treasures beyond imagination. Diamonds formed in the hearts of dying stars. metals from the first planets ever created. Lyrae looked at each of them with polite respect. "Your achievements are indeed impressive," she said. "But today, I wish to speak with Taeho." Admiral Jinwoo pushed through the crowd, his face red with embarrassment and anger. "Excuse me, but there must be some confusion. Taeho is just a minor cultural attaché. I am Admiral Park Jinwoo, commander of Earth's space fleet. Perhaps you meant to speak with me about military cooperation, or perhaps you wish to discuss trade agreements," added diplomat Dongmin, stepping beside the admiral. "I have negotiated treaties with 17 different species." Scientist Hyun-sik activated a floating display, showing his latest inventions. "If you are interested in technology, I have developed engines that can travel faster than light itself." Lyrae listened to each of them patiently, but her galaxy eyes kept returning to Taeho. "I appreciate all of your accomplishments," she said, "but I have not traveled across the galaxy to discuss war, trade, or technology. I came to meet the human who writes about the beauty of children's laughter and the wisdom found in old people's stories." Taeho felt his face turn red. You have read my cultural reports?" "Every single one," Lyrae said. "And they are the most beautiful documents I have encountered in 3,000 years of life." The crowd erupted in confused murmurs. How could simple reports about human art and music be more interesting than military power or scientific breakthroughs? Several aliens began arguing among themselves about what hidden meaning they must be missing. Lyrae gestured toward a quiet corridor leading to the observation decks. "Shall we?" They walked together through halls filled with staring faces. Taeho felt like he was in a dream. The most powerful being he had ever met was walking beside him, asking about his work. It made no sense. They reached an observation deck with a huge window overlooking space. Hundreds of stars sparkled in the darkness, and Taeho could see the curved surface of a nearby planet. Lyrae stood near the window, and the starlight seemed to make her glow even brighter. "You must be very confused," she said gently. "That is an understatement," Taeho replied. "Why would someone like you be interested in someone like me? I write reports about human music and poetry. Nobody thinks they are important." Lyrae turned to face him, and her expression became serious. "Taeho, what do you know about the Etherian Empire?" "Only stories," he said. "Legends about an ancient species that achieved perfect technology and perfect society. Most people think you are myths. We are real, though we sometimes wish we were not." Lyrae looked out at the stars, and for the first time she looked sad. "We have been watching humanity for thousands of years. We have observed your wars, your discoveries, your growth from a primitive species to one capable of traveling between stars. Watching us? Why? Because we have been searching for something we lost long ago." Lyrae's voice became soft, almost whispered. "My people achieved everything we ever wanted. Perfect technology, perfect society, perfect control over matter and energy. We became like gods. That sounds wonderful. It was terrible." Lyrae touched the window, and where her fingers made contact, small lights appeared like fireflies. "When you become perfect, Taeho, you lose the ability to create anything new. You lose the ability to feel wonder. You lose the ability to find meaning in small, beautiful moments." Taeho thought about this. "But surely perfect beings would be happy. We are not happy or sad. We simply exist." The lights under her fingers grew brighter. "We can build ships that travel between galaxies in seconds. We can create new stars or destroy old ones. We can solve any mathematical problem or cure any disease. But we cannot write a poem that makes someone cry. We cannot compose music that fills hearts with hope. We cannot tell stories that help people understand what it means to be alive." Understanding began to dawn on Taeho. "And that is what you found in my reports?" "Yes." Lyrae smiled again, and the sadness left her face. "You wrote about a human child learning to play the violin. The child played badly, making sounds that hurt to hear, but you described the joy on her face, the pride of her parents, the way the terrible music somehow became beautiful because of the love behind it. When I read that, I felt something I had not experienced in centuries." "What did you feel?" "Wonder, and something else. I think humans call it hope." Taeho felt his heart beating faster. "But why me specifically? Other humans write about art and beauty too." "Because you do not just write about the final result," Lyrae explained. "You write about the struggle, the failure, the imperfection that makes something truly beautiful. You wrote about an old man who spent 40 years carving a single statue, never quite getting it right but never giving up. You wrote about a woman who sang lullabies to her sick child, knowing that her voice was not beautiful but that her love was. You understand something that my people forgot long ago. What is that? That perfection is not the goal. The goal is to keep trying, keep creating, keep finding beauty in broken things. You humans are wonderfully, magnificently imperfect, and that imperfection is what makes you divine. Through the window, Tae-ho could see other ships from the summit. He wondered what the people aboard them were thinking right now. The others will not understand this. No, they will not. Lyray's expression became worried, and that may cause problems. Some species will think you are hiding military secrets or advanced technology. Others will be jealous that you have gained favor with an Etherian. Even some of your fellow humans may turn against you. As if her words were prophetic, Tae-ho's communication device began beeping with urgent messages. The first was from Dr. Han So-young, an ambitious scientist who worked with the human delegation. Tae-ho, what are you hiding from us? How did you make contact with the Etherians before the rest of the delegation? This could be seen as treason. The second message was from Nam Ki-tae, a military strategist. Report to security immediately. We need to know what information you have shared with alien forces. More messages kept coming. Some were accusations, some were demands for explanations, and some were threats. Lyray read the worry on his face. I am sorry. I did not mean to put you in danger. It is not your fault, Tae-ho said. But you are right. They will never understand that someone chose me for my reports about human songs and stories. They will think there must be some hidden military or scientific reason. Then we must help them understand, Lyray said. But first I must tell you the rest of the truth. My people did not just lose the ability to create and feel. We also made mistakes that we cannot fix. We damaged worlds in our pursuit of perfection. We caused suffering that we do not know how to heal. That is another reason why we need humanity's help. What kind of help? I will show you tomorrow. But tonight you should return to your delegation and try to explain what has happened. Tell them the truth, even if they do not believe it. Tae-ho nodded, though he dreaded facing the angry questions and suspicious stares waiting for him. As they walked back toward the main hall, he could hear loud arguments already starting. The calm summit had become a storm of confusion and jealousy. At the entrance to the hall, Lyray stopped and looked at him with her galaxy eyes. Tae-ho, do you know what the most beautiful thing about humans is? Know what? You choose to love imperfect things, and that choice makes you more divine than any species that has achieved perfection. With those words, she disappeared into the crowd, leaving Tae-ho to face the chaos that her attention had created. The next morning, Tae-ho woke up to find the entire space station buzzing with angry energy. News of Lyray's interest in him had spread throughout the galaxy overnight. Ships were arriving every hour, bringing representatives who wanted to see what made one human so special. The hallways were crowded with aliens whispering to each other in their strange languages. Tae-ho could feel their eyes following him wherever he went. Some looked curious, others looked angry, and a few looked like they wanted to challenge him to a fight. The worst part was that even other humans were treating him differently. Dr. Han So-young cornered him near the dining area, her face tight with suspicion. What technology did you give them? She demanded. What military secrets did you share? There has to be a reason why the most advanced species in the galaxy is interested in a nobody like you. I told you the truth, Tae-ho said tiredly. She liked my cultural reports. That is all. Cultural reports? So-young laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Do you think I'm stupid? Nobody travels across the galaxy to read about human music. You are hiding something, and when I find out what it is, your career will be over. Nam Ki-tae appeared beside her, his military uniform making him look official and threatening. The delegation has voted to remove you from all official activities until we can determine if you have been compromised by alien influence. You are restricted to your quarters except for meals. Tae-ho felt like he had been punched in the stomach. You are treating me like a traitor for having a conversation? A conversation that could affect the security of Earth, Kai-tae replied coldly. We have protocols for this kind of situation. As they spoke, a tremendous roar echoed through the station. The sound was so loud that the walls vibrated. Through the nearest window, Tae-ho could see a massive Kavari warship hovering near the station. Its hull was covered with weapons and battle scars. The station's communication system crackled to life. This is War Chief Thrakmor of the Kavari Empire. I demand that the human Tae-ho face me in trial by combat. If he has truly earned the favor of the first ones, let him prove his worth with blade and claw. More ships appeared in the distance. A sleek Vorthak science vessel began broadcasting complex mathematical equations on all frequencies. "This is Prime Calculator Zenth," came a clicking voice. "Let the human solve the paradox of infinite recursion. If he cannot demonstrate superior intellect, then his claims of worthiness are false." A golden Plutonian merchant ship joined them, its hull sparkling with embedded gems. "This is Trade Prince Luxor. I offer 1 billion galactic credits for whatever technology or secret the human possesses. Name your price." Within an hour, 12 different alien ships surrounded the station, each demanding that Tejo prove himself according to their own values. The Kavari wanted combat. The Vorthak wanted intellectual challenges. The Plutonians wanted to buy his secrets, and others made their own demands. Admiral Jin Woo called an emergency meeting of the human delegation. They gathered in a secure conference room, where the walls blocked alien listening devices. Jin Woo's face was red with anger and embarrassment. "This is a disaster," he announced. "Half the galaxy thinks we are hiding some superweapon, and the other half thinks we have made secret deals with the Etherians. Our membership in the Galactic Council is at risk." Diplomat Dongmin nodded grimly. 3 species have already threatened to leave the Council if we do not explain Tejo's special status. They think we have gained an unfair advantage. Scientist Hyun-sik looked confused and frustrated. "I have analyzed every report Tejo has ever written. There is no hidden technology, no secret codes, no military information. They really are just descriptions of human art and culture. Then why does the most advanced species in the galaxy care about them?" demanded So Young. Before anyone could answer, the conference room door opened. Lyrae walked in, moving through the wall as if it was made of mist. The humans jumped back in shock, reaching for weapons that would be useless against her. "Please do not be afraid," she said calmly. "I have come to speak with Tejo, but I see that you are all here. Perhaps this is better. You deserve to understand what is happening." Admiral Jin Woo stepped forward, trying to look brave despite facing a being who could walk through solid walls. "What do you want with our people? What technology are you seeking?" "I seek no technology," Lyrae replied. "I seek something far more precious and far more rare. What could be more valuable than our scientific advances?" Asked Hyun-sik, Lyrae smiled sadly. "The ability to create meaning from chaos, the courage to love imperfect things, the wisdom to find beauty in broken places. These are treasures that cannot be measured or replicated." The humans stared at her in confusion. Dongmin spoke carefully. "Surely an advanced species like yours would have developed these qualities long ago." "We had them once," Lyrae said, "but we lost them in our pursuit of perfection. Now I wish to show you something that may help you understand." She raised her hand and the air in the room began to shimmer. A holographic image appeared, showing a beautiful planet with blue oceans and green continents. Cities of crystal and light dotted the surface, connected by bridges that seemed to float in the air. This was Kepler 442b, a world we tried to help 10,000 years ago, Lyrae explained. The people there were dying from a plague that was destroying their crops. We had the technology to save them easily. The image changed, showing the same planet but dead and gray. The oceans were black, the continents were covered in ash, and no lights showed anywhere on the surface. "We removed the plague perfectly," Lyrae continued. "We also removed every other microorganism from the planet. Every bacteria, every virus, every tiny living thing that the plague had been competing with. We made the world perfectly clean and perfectly sterile, and in doing so, we killed everything." The humans stared at the dead world in horror. "But surely you could have been more careful," whispered So Young. "We were perfectly careful," Lyrae said. "That was the problem. We followed our calculations exactly. We achieved the perfect solution to the plague problem, but we did not understand that some imperfection, some chaos, some messiness is necessary for life to exist." Tejo found his voice. "And that is why you need humanity's help?" "Yes." The hologram changed again, showing hundreds of similar dead worlds. "We have made this mistake countless times in countless ways. We help species achieve perfect technology, and they lose the ability to create art. We give them perfect peace, and they forget how to feel joy. We solve all their problems, and they stop growing as people." Admiral Jinwoo looked skeptical. "What makes you think humans can do better?" "Because humans embrace imperfection," Lyrae replied. "Tejo's reports taught me this. He wrote about a human sculptor who spent 50 years creating a statue, breaking it and starting over each time he felt it was not quite right. Not because he was seeking perfection, but because he enjoyed the process of creation itself. She gestured and another hologram appeared. This one showed a dying world similar to the first, but instead of being dead, it was slowly healing. Green patches appeared on the gray continents and small lights began to flicker in the darkness. "This is my test for you, Tejo," she said. "This world still suffers from our ancient mistake. We can restore its physical properties easily, the air, the water, the soil, but we cannot restore what makes a world truly alive. Show me how humans would heal this place." The other humans looked at Tejo expectantly. They were waiting for him to reveal some hidden military strategy or advanced technology that would solve the problem. Even he felt confused about what she expected from him. I do not understand," he said. "I am not a scientist or an engineer. I do not know how to fix planets." "You are not meant to fix it," Lyrae said gently. "You are meant to imagine how to help it heal itself." Tejo looked at the slowly recovering world and tried to think. What would humans do? Not the brilliant scientists or powerful military leaders, but ordinary humans faced with a broken place that needed to become home again. "We would start small," he said slowly, "not with grand plans or perfect solutions. We would plant gardens in the places where the soil was getting better. Not perfect gardens, but simple ones with vegetables and flowers that children could help tend." The hologram responded to his words, showing tiny green spaces appearing near the small lights on the planet. "We would build gathering places," he continued, getting more confident. "Not perfect buildings, but simple ones where people could share meals and tell stories about how things used to be and how they hoped things would become." More structures appeared in the hologram, rough and humble but warm with light. "We would encourage people to sing," Tejo said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. "Not perfect songs, but honest ones. Songs about loss and hope, about the work of healing, about the beauty that can grow in broken places." As he spoke, the dying world in the hologram began to change more rapidly. The green spaces connected into networks of gardens. The gathering places became centers of activity. The light spread across the continents like stars being born. "And we would teach our children that scars can be beautiful," Tejo finished. "That broken things, when healed with love and patience, are often more precious than things that were never broken at all." The hologram now showed. The massive ships of the Nexus Collective hung in space like dark monuments to perfect order. Each vessel was a perfect geometric shape, cubes, pyramids, and spheres that reflected no light and seemed to absorb the stars around them. Just looking at them made Tejo feel cold inside. More ships appeared, these ones glowing with pure energy. They had no solid form, just shifting patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. Lyrae's face grew even paler when she saw them. "The Transcendent Order has come as well," she whispered. "This is worse than I feared." Admiral Jinwoo was shouting orders into his communication device, trying to contact Earth's fleet. "We need reinforcements here immediately. I do not care how many ships it takes." The mechanical voice of the Nexus Collective spoke again, coming from every speaker on the station. "Attention all biological entities. You have been exposed to emotional contamination from species designation, human. Report to processing bays for cleansing procedures." A new voice joined them, this one sounding like music made from pure mathematics. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "This is the Transcendent Order. We have observed the spread of chaotic emotional patterns. All affected consciousness must be elevated to pure logic for galactic stability." Dr. So-Young grabbed Tejo by the shoulders, her eyes wild with fear and anger. "What have you done? What have you started?" Before Tejo could answer, the conference room filled with shifting lights. When the lights faded, they were no longer on the station. They stood in a vast crystalline chamber aboard Lyrae's ship. The walls were transparent, giving them a view of the crisis developing outside. "I brought you here for safety," Lyrae explained, "but I fear there is nowhere in the galaxy that will be safe now." Through the crystal walls, they could see the alien ships at the summit choosing sides. Some moved closer to the dark vessels of the Nexus Collective. Others drifted toward the energy beings of the Transcendent Order. A few brave ships stayed near Harmony's edge, but they looked tiny and helpless. "I do not understand," said scientist Hyun-sik. "Why are they treating emotions like a disease?" Lyrae gestured, and the crystal walls became a display showing the history of the galaxy. Ancient civilizations rose and fell in fast forward. Wars raged across star systems, and entire species disappeared from existence. Long ago, the galaxy was young and chaotic, she began. Species fought constantly, driven by emotions like fear, anger, greed, and jealousy. Billions died in wars that started over pride or misunderstandings. The display showed massive battles, planets burning, and the darkness between stars filled with the wreckage of destroyed fleets. 3 ancient powers emerged to bring order, Lyra continued. The Nexus Collective achieved perfect logic by replacing biological brains with mechanical ones. The Transcendent Order evolved beyond physical form into pure consciousness. And my people, the Etherians, learned to control every aspect of matter and energy. That sounds like it should have brought peace, said diplomat Dongmin. It did. The display now showed a galaxy of perfect order, with each species following logical rules and efficient systems. But it also brought something else. The display zoomed in on individual worlds. They were clean and organized, with cities laid out in perfect geometric patterns. But there were no children playing in parks, no artists creating in studios, no lovers walking hand in hand under alien stars. We brought peace by removing the capacity for the emotions that cause conflict, Lyra said sadly. But those same emotions are what make life worth living. Joy, love, hope, wonder. They all come from the same source as anger and fear and jealousy. Taeho stared at the sterile perfection on the display. You removed everything that makes people. Yes, and for millions of years, the galaxy has been perfectly peaceful and perfectly empty. Lyra waved her hand, and the display changed to show Taeho's cultural reports floating in the air like glowing pages. Until I read these. She touched one of the floating reports, and it expanded to show Taeho's words about a human wedding. He had described the tears of joy on the bride's face, the nervous laughter of the groom, the way the guests sang songs that were slightly off-key but full of love. When I read this, something awakened in me that had been sleeping for centuries, Lyra said. I remembered what it felt like to cry from happiness. I remembered what it meant to create something beautiful, not because it served a purpose, but simply because it brought joy. More reports expanded around them. Stories of human children learning to paint, of old people sharing memories, of communities coming together to help neighbors in trouble. Each report glowed with emotional warmth that seemed to fill the crystal chamber. This is why the others fear humanity, Lyra continued. Your species has achieved advanced technology while keeping your capacity for emotion. You prove that logic and feeling can exist together. This threatens everything the ancient powers have built. Admiral Jinwoo looked skeptical. But surely some species must have maintained their emotions. A few tried, Lyra replied. The display showed various alien species, but they all looked subdued and controlled. But they learned to suppress their feelings to avoid attention from the ancient powers. The Kavari channeled all emotion into controlled combat rituals. The Vorthak buried feeling beneath mathematics. The Plutonians focused only on the accumulation of wealth. And now they think humans are going to spread emotional chaos throughout the galaxy, realized Taeho. Exactly. Lyra looked out at the gathering fleets with worry. The Nexus Collective believes that emotions are a computational error that must be corrected. The Transcendent Order sees them as primitive biological impulses that prevent enlightenment. Both powers will do anything to stop what they see as contamination. The chamber shook as energy beams passed close to their ship. Through the crystal walls, they could see the first shots being fired between the opposing fleets. The peaceful summit was becoming a battle that could tear apart the Galactic Order. Suddenly, new ships appeared near the station. These were human vessels, led by a massive battleship that Taeho recognized as Earth's flagship. His relief was short-lived when he saw the ship's identification. That is Admiral Lee Jae-sung's command ship, said Jinwoo with worry in his voice. He is known for being aggressive in his responses to threats. The human fleet moved into formation between the alien powers and Harmony's Edge. Admiral Jae-sung's voice came over all communication channels. This is Admiral Lee Jae-sung of the Earth Defense Force. Any attack on human citizens or our allies will be considered an act of war against Earth. The mechanical voice of the Nexus Collective responded immediately. Human vessels will withdraw immediately or be processed along with the contaminated biological units. Like hell we will, Jae-sung replied. The Transcendent Order's musical voice joined the conversation. Admiral Jae-sung, Your emotional responses prove that your species requires elevation to pure consciousness. Submit to our procedures and you will achieve perfect peace. Keep your perfect peace, Jae-sung shot back. We like our imperfect chaos just fine. Tae-ho felt a chill as he realized what was happening. They are going to fight a war over emotions. Over the things I wrote about in my reports. Not just your reports, Lyrae said gently. Over the right of all species to feel, to create, to find meaning in imperfection. Your writing was just the spark that lit a fire that has been waiting to burn for millions of years. The crystal chamber shook again as more weapons fired. Outside, the battle was growing larger as more ships chose sides. Some alien species were joining the humans, remembering what they had lost in their pursuit of perfect order. Dr. So-young stared at the battle in shock. All of this because you wrote about art and music? No, said Lyrae firmly. All of this because the galaxy has been waiting for someone to remind them what they gave up. Tae-ho's reports did not create the desire for emotion and beauty. They awakened desires that were already there, buried under millions of years of enforced logic. Through the chaos of the battle, a new communication came through. This one was from Tae-ho's childhood friend Park Min-ho, who had become a government agent. Tae-ho, this is Min-ho. I am aboard one of the human ships and I have orders to arrest you for suspected treason. Command believes you may have shared classified information with alien powers. Tae-ho felt his heart break a little. Even his oldest friend thought he was a traitor. Lyrae saw his pain and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. They do not understand yet, but they will. The question is whether understanding will come before or after the galaxy tears itself apart. The battle outside was growing more intense. Ships exploded in flashes of light and space filled with debris. The ancient powers had brought weapons that could destroy entire fleets with single shots. There has to be something we can do, said Tae-ho desperately. Some way to stop this before everyone dies. Lyrae looked at him with her galaxy eyes, and for the first time since he had met her, she looked afraid. There is one possibility, but it would require enormous courage from you and enormous sacrifice from me. What do you mean? I could use my people's technology to broadcast a message to every conscious being in the galaxy. Not just words, but emotions themselves. I could share what you have taught me about the beauty of imperfection, the joy of creation, the courage to. The battle outside grew more violent with each passing minute. Entire sections of Harmony's Edge Station were now burning wreckage floating in space. The dark ships of the Nexus Collective fired beams that turned matter into perfectly organized dust. The energy beings of the Transcendent Order sent waves of force that made ships simply disappear. Admiral Jae-sung's human fleet fought bravely, but they were vastly outnumbered. For every ancient power ship they damaged, 10 more appeared from hyperspace. Some alien species had joined the humans, but many others had fled rather than face the wrath of beings who had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. Inside Lyrae's crystal chamber, she was preparing for the broadcast that would either save the galaxy or destroy it. Streams of light flowed from her hands into a complex device that looked like a flower made of pure starlight. Tell me about the child with the violin again, she said to Tae-ho as she worked. I want to make sure I capture that moment perfectly. Tae-ho closed his eyes and remembered. Her name was Lee Yu-jin. She was 7 years old and she had been learning violin for only 3 months. Her school was having a concert, and she was terrified because she knew she would make mistakes. The device in Lyrae's hands pulsed with warm light as she absorbed the emotion from his memory. She played a simple song called Twinkle. Twinkle, little star, Tae-ho continued, but her fingers shook and she hit wrong notes. The sound was awful. Some people in the audience winced. But, Lyrae prompted, knowing there was more, but she kept playing. Even when tears started running down her face, even when she wanted to run away, she finished the song. And when she played the last note, her parents stood up and clapped harder than anyone had ever clapped for a perfect performance. Lyrae smiled as the emotion flowed into her device. Because they were not clapping for the music. They were clapping for the courage, Tae-ho agreed. For the decision to keep trying even when things go wrong. For the beauty that comes from refusing to give up. The chamber shook as another explosion rocked their ship. Through the crystal walls, Tae-ho could see Admiral Jae-sung's flagship taking heavy damage. One of its engines was gone and fires burned along its hull. We are running out of time, said Admiral Jin-woo grimly. Lyrae nodded and worked faster. Tell me about the old man and his statue. Park Kang-ho, Tae-ho said immediately. He was a stone carver who spent 50 years working on a single statue of his wife. Every time he finished it, he would find something wrong and start over. What was wrong with it? Nothing that anyone else could see. But he said it did not capture the way she laughed when she was surprised, or the kindness in her eyes when she helped wounded animals. So he would break the statue and begin again. The device grew brighter as Lyra captured another essential human emotion. His wife died when he was 70, Tejo continued. People expected him to finish the statue then, to create a memorial. Instead, he broke it one more time and started over. He said that now he understood something new about love, that it is not about creating a perfect image of someone, but about the joy of trying to understand them better every day. Did he ever finish it? He died at his workbench at age 90, chisel in hand, still working. His children found hundreds of broken statues in his workshop, each one beautiful but imperfect. They put them all in a garden together and people come from all over Earth to see them. Why? Because the broken statues tell a story about love that a perfect statue never could. They show that some things are more important than completion. The devotion, the effort, the refusal to settle for less than the truth of feeling. Lyra's device now blazed with collected emotions. The light was so bright that it filled the entire chamber, but it was warm rather than harsh. It felt like sunlight on a spring morning, like a mother's embrace, like the first day of a long-awaited vacation. One more, she said, her voice getting weaker as she poured her own life force into the device. Tell me about the community that helped their neighbor. Tejo thought of the story that had made him cry when he wrote it. There was a flood in the city of Busan. An old woman named Kim Hae-suk was trapped in her apartment building when the water rose. She had no family and most people did not even know her name. But someone helped. Everyone helped. The young man from the convenience store carried her to safety. The family from upstairs brought her dry clothes. The children from down the hall shared their snacks with her. People who had never spoken to each other before worked together to save one lonely old woman. That is beautiful. But what makes it specifically human? Tejo smiled through his tears. When the flood was over, they kept helping her. Not because they had to, but because they had discovered something wonderful. That helping someone else made them feel more alive. The convenience store boy started visiting her every week. The family upstairs invited her for dinner. The children drew her pictures. And Hae-suk, she became the grandmother the whole building had always needed, but never knew they were missing. She taught the children traditional songs, helped the teenagers with their homework, and listened to the adults when they needed someone to talk to. The flood washed away her loneliness and gave everyone a family they had not expected. As Tejo finished the story, the device reached its full power. The light was now so intense that it seemed to bend space around itself. Lyra's hair had turned completely silver and her skin was becoming translucent. "It is ready," she whispered. "But I must warn you one last time. This broadcast will reach every conscious mind in the galaxy. If it succeeds, it will awaken emotions that have been dormant for millions of years. Some beings will not be able to handle the experience. Some may go insane. Some may die from the shock of feeling again. And if it fails, then humanity will be exterminated as a dangerous influence, and the galaxy will remain perfectly ordered and perfectly empty forever." Through the crystal walls, they could see that Admiral Jae Sung's ship was about to be destroyed. The ancient powers were preparing their ultimate weapons, devices that could sterilize entire solar systems. Tejo thought about all the small, beautiful moments he had written about over the years. The imperfect music, the unfinished art, the kindness between strangers. Were these things worth risking everything to preserve? He looked at Lyra, who was willing to die to give the galaxy back its capacity for wonder. He thought about Admiral Jae Sung and his crews, who were fighting impossible odds to defend the right to feel emotions. He remembered little Yu-jin with her shaking hands and her determination to finish her song. "Do it," he said. Lyra placed her hands on the device, and her life force began flowing into it like water into a vast ocean. "Tejo," she said as her voice grew faint, "will you help me guide the broadcast? Your understanding of human emotion is what makes this possible." He placed his hands next to hers on the device, feeling the incredible energy flowing through it. "What do I need to do?" "Just remember," she said. "Remember all the beautiful imperfections you have witnessed. Let them flow through you and into the broadcast." The device activated. The sensation was beyond anything Tejo had ever imagined. He felt his consciousness expand to touch every mind in the galaxy. For one impossible moment, he was connected to billions of beings across thousands of worlds. And through that connection, he shared what it meant to be human. He shared the trembling hands of a child playing violin for the first time, the patient love of an old man carving stone, the spontaneous kindness of neighbors helping neighbors, the tears of joy at a wedding, the bittersweet beauty of a grandmother's lullaby, the determined hope of farmers planting crops after a drought. But most of all, he shared the courage to love imperfect things. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Across the galaxy, beings who had not felt emotions for eons suddenly remembered what they had lost. On the Nexus Collective ships, mechanical minds experienced wonder for the first time in millennia and began questioning their perfect logic. Among the Transcendent Order, pure consciousness touched the messy joy of physical existence and found it beautiful. The Kavari warriors stopped their ritualized combat and began weeping for the poetry they had forgotten how to write. The Vorthak mathematicians discovered that numbers could be beautiful as well as correct. The Plutonian merchants realized that some treasures could not be bought or sold. On worlds throughout the galaxy, species that had lived in sterile perfection for millions of years suddenly remembered how to laugh, how to cry, how to create art that served no purpose except to bring joy. But the cost was enormous. Lyrie's physical form was dissolving as her life force powered the broadcast. She was becoming pure light, fading like a star at dawn. "Thank you," she whispered to Tejo as she began to disappear. "You have given the galaxy the greatest gift imaginable, the courage to be imperfect again." As the broadcast ended and Lyrie faded completely away, Tejo found himself alone in the crystal chamber. But through the transparent walls he could see that the battle had stopped. The ancient power ships hung motionless in space, their crews struggling to understand the flood of emotions they were experiencing. Admiral Jae-sung's voice came over the communication channels, confused but hopeful. "This is Earth Defense Fleet. All ships report status. Something has changed out here.